Right, we're blessed to be back here for part two of an interview with the lovely Judith Collins. She's in great flow as usual, sharing lots about her understanding of life and the auric dimensions. I've just been making a few notes because Judith, if you've watched the previous interview, was sharing some fascinating stuff. Quite a lot of it to me. I'm interested in this conversation further about reincarnation and old souls, really. You mentioned about this auric matrix that you say is like a sort of code that travels through life with people as they accumulate that. And one of my questions was, do you think the information contained in that auric matrix is accessible to the person in that lived life? Through
No,
you don't think so?
no.
No.
I know that for a fact.
Okay.
Clairvoyants can't even get it.
Okay. Wow.
Good psychics can't even get it.
Okay.
It's there. It's if you were to understand it as a bank vault,
Right.
and if you've got cash in a bank vault, you've got to go through all these processes and sign a form, and then somebody escorts you, and you've got to open it up. You got to look at it. They got to
Right.
close it up. They got to put it back. You got to, yeah. That's it. There are. You don't need it anyway. People get fascinated. I knew that if I put it out there in the marketplace, which I'm choosing to do in the next week, couple of days, people will go, "Oh my God, this is what we've got to understand." And no, you don't. You don't.
Okay.
Um, what? How to understand the auric? It's called the auric matrix, which I got the name through channeling for it. I wanted to understand what the hell it was, right? And because it's different to anything else in the human aura. The human aura is full of all these patterns, and there's roadmaps into all different layers of the aura. Anyway, it's a blueprint of the soul. That's it. That's how we can all understand it. It's the blueprint of the soul. So can we access it? It's impenetrable. I know. I've tried.
Mm.
I've tried every which way.
Mm.
But anyway, I've been told by spirit that it is impenetrable and that it locks in all the learning of the soul and the journey of the soul. What it can do, and I've seen it happen, and it's happened to me, and it's happened to a few people that I know. At any time, this blueprint that has all our knowledge and our experience, say for instance, you're in a company job that's got a deadline and there's stress going everywhere in amongst everybody, then all of a sudden this sense of knowing comes over you and you go calm and you see what needs to be done. That's come in from the matrix.
Okay.
If, for instance, you have got tickets to fly to America and you get up that morning and something strongly says to you, make another time, make another time. And you don't know where that's coming from.
Right.
And you think maybe it's your intuition, maybe it's your spirit guide. 9 times out of 10, it's not the spirit guide. They can't be bothered with that kind of stuff. They've got more important things they want to do. And it's the matrix bringing it down because this is not the end of your life and that plane might crash. Do you see what I'm saying? So it brings things in. I spoke to one woman who was a child during Nazi Germany, right? As I said, I've taken these auras as far as I can get them. I found all these people that had gone into the UK when I was working in the UK, who had been children growing up in Nazi, and some of them were in concentration camps.
Right.
Well, you can imagine what their auras like. I wanted to see their auras, right?
Okay.
Not the surface of coping, but go right down into the deep parts of their aura to find out how the aura copes. How do we cope? How does the mind cope? What do we do? How do we learn? And so on. Anyway, all these different patterns that come into it. And so one person, one woman who was an elderly woman, as a child, escaped concentration camp for 2 years before she was recaptured. She said her mother and the other 2 children were being loaded onto a train. She saw one of the German soldiers let go of, turn around. She let go of her mother's hand and ran off. And she ran back home, but not to her home. She ran into the country where her grandmother lived.
Okay.
And that was her matrix doing that.
Okay.
So she survived. She was recaptured a couple of years just before the end of the war. And so, yeah, she survived. And that was her letting loose of that, you know. I met one woman, horrible, oh God. Anyway, I met one elderly woman. She was a very young woman. She was an 18-year-old that had twin boys in Nazi Germany. And one was sickly child and the other one was very healthy. And the German said she could only take one child on the train. So she had to leave the sickly one crying on the platform as she got onto the train with the others. What an aura. Yeah.
Gosh.
I know this is it. And you've got all the or you've got all those traveling auras of refugees that come into the family. You look at Palestine. Wow. Should see the auras in Palestine. Wow. Complicated. But what it's doing for me, because in my, as you know, my experience, I tend to put this into practical use to help people, to
Yeah.
give insights into counselling and psychology and working with doctors and crime fields and so on. And so I just absorb as much as I can absorb to understand how the hell do we cope? How do you cope with that if you're an 11-year-old child? How do you cope with it? You know, you never see your mother again, you know. Yeah, it's fascinating, but you get back to that, the matrix, and the auric matrix is the blueprint of the soul. And so therefore we don't get a look in it. This is my understanding, my spiritual understanding of it. We don't get ever to look into it because the soul has patterns that it can change at any time. We can come through this lifetime and it says, well, I didn't learn that much, so I'm going to go down this road instead. It's not a repeat. We don't get to learn the repeats. If we want to know, if people really want to learn about their aura, would you like me to give you the steps in learning about your aura? See, the first step you can do as an individual, you can go to an astrologer and a numerologist, and you can get your full reading, and they will give you patterns of what your soul has chosen. Your soul chose its time of birth, its place of birth, its date of birth, its month of birth, its year of birth, and it chose the parents it incarnated with. So by getting full astrological reading done, when my kids turned 18, that's what they got for their birthdays. They got all that done. That was my gift to them because that will carry them for the rest of their lives. The numerology is another one. Your soul follows the vibration. Like your soul relates to a number 9. That's what your soul relates to. It may not be your birth date, but it's got levels of its consciousness, its connection with the material world, its connection with the spiritual world on all its different levels, and the planetary system all relate to a number 9. So there's a core 9 behind that. So that's playing into everybody's life. It may not show up in your numerology, but it's there because the aura says it's there. That's what I meant, how complicated the aura is or how fascinating it is, right? Now, once you get the astrology and you get the numerology done, you've got a rough idea of who you are. You know what you like and what you don't like. You keep a book on your life experiences. Something happens to you, you ask yourself a question. did I react or respond?
Okay.
Two different things. React means you're a young soul. Respond means you're a more mature soul. Yeah. When the fire happened and burnt down our property, all the social workers and the charity workers that come around to help you, they said that Paul and I, our attitude to losing everything blew them away. We just looked at the fire and said, well, it's done, it's destroyed, there's nothing left. You've got nothing but to, to move on. And so you start working out a plan, and then you start putting the plan together in stages and to rebuild your life, right? But the other people, and this is younger souls, right? Younger souls sit around in a self-help group, yell and scream, throw tantrums, blame the charities, blame the fire brigades, tell us that the charities aren't doing enough work, the government's not doing anything. They're the young souls. They're
Okay.
the young souls. When we started off to talk about old souls, how do you determine an old soul? Most old souls don't go to university, never go to university. Old souls come into this life to share their wisdom with anybody who will come under their wings. They don't go out on a platform around the world and teach. They may have compressed karma. If they've got compressed karma that they must complete in this lifetime, their aura will show a whole lot of past life patterns in it. And that compressed karma has to be dealt with in all different ways, but they don't deal with it in an emotional way. It's done in a very, very healing way. So every choice and every lesson that they have, they heal people. Yeah.
Okay.
Fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I think it's an interesting thing, this old soul thing, because say, for example, I met somebody once who did and I think they did a birth chart reading for me a long time ago, and they said I was a bit of an old soul, but that I'd had many lives and things like that. And then I've
Yeah.
also witnessed other people saying that like I know somebody who's young who says they're an old soul, but I'm not quite sure where they've kind of come
Yeah.
with that. And so I think
A
there's a
lot of people say that.
yeah.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean to say they're old.
Hmm.
Being told you're an old soul by looking at your astrology,
Hmm.
that means a mature soul.
Okay.
An old soul is something different.
Okay.
An old soul is a person who lives a quiet life
Right.
and they share their wisdom amongst all people who cross their path.
Yeah.
My father-in-law, the best friend I ever had, was an old soul, and he helped everybody in the community. Nobody did things for him, he did things for them. He donated things. He went up and did free building projects for people, fixed people's widows and single mums fences and children's toys, and he made with his timber. He made all these lovely dolls' houses in his garage and gave them away to the poor children, and made little go-karts and did that and whatever. Give, 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 never take. That's one of the things an old soul does. An old soul, as I said, doesn't gather their wisdom by reading books. No. And
Yeah.
they don't go and do courses. They have that wisdom and they're cocooned within that wisdom. Part of their life is to make people feel secure, make people feel secure in relationships, secure in their own self-worth, and secure in their own self-development. That's what old souls do. And as I said to you earlier, rarely do you find them in the esoteric world. You don't find them in the spiritual world. I've done the auras of some very, very famous gurus in the 80s and the and the 90s. I mean, there I was in my clinic in New South Wales, and this young man walks in with a little tiny paper bag, and he says, "I've come from India, and my guru has told me to give it to Judith," and he wrote the address on the bag. So I've never met him, but that was Sai Baba, and he wrote my address on the bag and told this fellow to give it to me, to hand it to me personally. And so I did Sai Baba's aura. Yes, and they're all evolved, but they're not old souls, not old souls. And old souls have no other lifetimes to complete. They come here by choice, unless, of course, they've got what's called compressed karma. And compressed karma doesn't mean to say it's negative. It just means there's little tail ends of a couple of past lives that they want to put into, they tidy it all up, bring it into this life and complete it in this life. And that's called, in the aura, that's compressed karma. Yeah, yeah.
And so how many, when you're talking about this idea, if we go back to the reincarnation piece, because I think this does fascinate people, and I wondered whether, yeah, this idea of obviously sometimes people live in this life and have a sense of kind of knowing, or they have a relationship with the existence at this time. But then sometimes people have losses. I think I mentioned to you before, I had a friend who tragically committed suicide, or you have people who leave this dimension earlier. And so I think the whole reincarnation thing kind of fascinates people, because this idea of either people's spirits still being around, or people kind of coming back into existence and another human existence is a fascinating thing. And I think some people can accept that, can't they? And some people can't. Some people can feel that people have, I've always felt that my friend who committed suicide, that he's still around in spirit, but I'm pretty sure he may well be back on this plane in another human existence by now. But his energy for me, still burns brightly as a memory for me of being alongside him and knowing him throughout life. But yeah, I just wondered whether, how do you see the it might be helpful to just, is there any sort of deeper knowledge about reincarnation, or how you perceive it, that you could share? That would be interesting.
That's right. Reincarnation, the first thing we do is, number one, a soul chooses. It chooses its reincarnation. It doesn't choose it by itself. It chooses with a group of people, that we're calling them people right now, or a group of souls who it has travelled with, and they have helped each other on a learning path, and they have triggered each other's learning, right? So they become what's called, what we would understand in our language, a soul family, whereas the spirit world recognizes that as a joint consciousness, right? So two different interpretations, but the same thing. So we say a soul family. So you have people within your life, maybe even your next door neighbour that you've known for 40 years, and you've helped each other out on occasions. You don't know where your soul family is going to appear, but you do know when they do appear, because they're there at a crucial moment, or they're there at a celebratory moment, and they become friends for life. They're there. They don't pop in and out. They travel with you through life. And they could be a bloke that you started work with, the man that you started work with, and you're both 18-year-olds and you've kept in touch, and he's gone off and had his family, you've had your family, and once every 2 or 3 years you meet in a pub, that kind of thing. So that's that. Now, together, that dual consciousness, right? The soul family looks at what they all need to learn for their own involvement, and they work out a plan of action that if you do this and you do that, I go up here and you go up there at the same time, And if we do this, we do this, we pull these ones through at the same time. This is how it's all worked out. If your soul wants to learn quickly, they will choose a complex reality, very, very complex. Example, in amongst refugees coming in from wherever in the world, they have witnessed the death of all their loved ones. They could be the last one standing, right? Mm. They're arriving in a country, they have no money, they have no food, and they don't speak the language. So they meet up with people who are in the same soul family. They might be a 17-year-old or a single mum with a new baby and she's escaped, and a family take her in. They're all part of her learning, and they stay with her when she gets settled. They teach her English. They teach her how to drive a car. They do all these things. That's the soul family coming in to help. She, through her experience, teaches them another dimension of life that they would never be exposed to. There's lessons going everywhere. Yeah. She comes into the life. The community workers come in. The doctors come in. All of them are learning. So they're all part of this learning curve. So you have an innate, just a very close knit of about 6 or 7 members of a soul family. And then you have an outer group that you may have spent several different lifetimes involved with them, but you've all worked together before. Okay. So trying to track your soul family, how do you find them? There's a way to find them. If you've been at school and you met a friend and you were 5 years old, and here you are, you're both 65 years old and you've been best friends for years, there's your soulmate. If you, like me, married into my husband's family and his father and I just looked at each other and fell madly, passionately in love with each other on a soul level. And we were never separated, never apart. We did everything together. We lived in each other's pockets, drove everybody in the family mad. Paul used to say there were 3 people in our marriage. That's how big a part his father played in my life. Right. So he's an old soul. His father was an old soul, and I recognized that immediately, and I knew that that was linking to me, not to his family. So he had lived, incarnated into that family to give them stability. Wow. Because his mother suffered from depression and various things. So he understood her, gave her patience, gave her stability, created a life where she felt safe. He did all that for her as an old soul. And then he was there ready for me to marry Paul and come into his life. And then he and I traveled life together, understanding each other. Yeah. So that gives you an idea of how you can find soul people. You can actually find a soul member. Say, for instance, you're driving along a road and you lose a tyre, your tyre goes flat, and you're thinking, oh my God, the spare tyre is not that good. What am I going to do? You get outside your car and whatever. Cars rush by you and one stops. And they get out and say, oh, look, I can't help you, mate, but I've got somebody who can do. I'll just make a phone call. And they make a phone call and that person comes out. Then you start chatting. You get to know each other. They'd say, when you want to go and get a coffee or something, and you do that and you chat. They're all part of your support. So you have got in your soul family, wherever you go in the world, some of them you may never meet. But if you go to Dubai and something happens at the airport, somebody in your soul family will come up and help you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I found when I was doing the research on the German concentration camps with the people that survived them, right? This is years ago. Well, they're dead now, but all those years ago I did that research. Soul families turned up, soul members turned up in the camps and gave everybody just peace and calm, and gave them the strength to face their persecuted reality, and stood by them. Yeah. So soul families are there in your life. So, and an example, next door neighbours to my mum, married young, had their children. One day when I went to visit my mum and I looked out at their auras, they were getting out of the car, and I said to my mother, "My God, that marriage won't last long." And she said, "What a horrible thing to say." And I said to her, "No, it's not. I said it's a reality. She's in that marriage just to learn a lesson, and she's learned it. So I don't know what she's going to do, but anyway, she left. And she didn't take the children. She left the children with him. She went out and lived the gay life and did whatever she wanted to do. Anyway, he was an airline pilot, and he met a hostess. They found a bond, and they lived next door to my parents for 45 years, happily married.
Okay.
So the lesson was done.
Right.
He met his soulmate, who was lovely, and they looked lovely together. She never had children, so she was happy to rear his children, because the mother just disappeared out of their lives, came back when they were 18 and 19 years old. Yeah, so that gives you an example for people who think they've got complex lives, how these things work out. Yes.
Yeah. What's your take? I'm intrigued when you're chatting about the multi-dimensions within your own family or Paul's family, and I think it's an intriguing thing. Like, if, say, for example, somebody has disconnected relationships with a family, a number of family members, could it be that in a reincarnation type thing that people always go back into the same families, that it kind of loops around in a family nucleus? Is that something?
Yes. And they'll all go back, and they will all figure out what happened,
Right.
and they will all make a different plan that works better next time. That's what they will do.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, being able to have a sense or access this knowledge is something in this life that can sometimes be tricky for people to.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. This is why I'm saying to people that the first thing you do is learn to know yourself, right? Learn to know yourself, and learn to know the people around you. So, for instance, if you've got a dominating person, right, in your family life, find out who they are. Find out how to work with them. I had a gregarious Aries in my father. Absolutely gregarious. Wonderful, but gregarious, an embarrassment half the time. Anyway, find out. If they're in a family, their date of birth, right? So you can get their astrology done. Learn about them. Learn about what their weak points are. Learn about what their strengths. Work with that, because that evolves you as a soul. I had a lady many, many years ago. I've got this in my aura book. She had been to India, and she had been developing herself as a yoga master, right? Yoga master. She came to get her aura done, and she said, "I don't feel as though I've done enough." And I said, "No, because the colours down the bottom of her aura show that she was bogged down in a relationship." I was able to go through and get a time zone on it. I said, "It's 20 years old." She said, "That's my father." And I said, "Well, until you deal with your father, you are not going to lift off like a rocket, because the soul's got to marry the emotional, the material, and the spiritual, and that's its job to do in this lifetime. It just doesn't, you can't run away from your pain and think you can go and meditate your way out of the pain, or balance your chakras, or clear your chakras, or go and do some energy healing. Unless you deal with that, it's going to follow you all the time, and it's going to hold you back and pull you back, and possibly pull you down with it.
Yeah.
And so what this woman did, I told her how to fix it. I said to her, do you know your father's date of birth? And she said, yes. And I said, right, we'll do a basic astrology on him. And she had a friend that was an astrologist, so they did it together. And I said, so get a picture of who he is, and you'll find out what his weak points are, what his strengths are, and you can work out in your mind which ones were playing at the time you were growing up.
Okay.
And how he handles life, how he deals with life, right? All that's in your astrology, how you deal with it. Do you analyze it to the 10th, degree? Do you try to work it out logically? Do you work it out emotionally? If you're Pisces, you're doing it emotionally, right? Yes, and so you find out how they work. So once she'd done that, she went to find a father, and she hadn't seen him. It took her 3 months to find a father, and she had a couple of meetings with him, and she approached him as he, not as the man who had beaten all the children, not as the man that beat his wife. He was more a quiet man this life. And she went through all of that. She talked to him as he was astrologically. And that first meeting went well. She had a second meeting, and she said that as she was coming away from that meeting, she thought, because the father had asked about her brothers, she thought, oh, maybe my spiritual journey is to drag my brothers along as well. So she went to see both of her brothers and said, we're going to put this to peace. This is what we're going to do. We're going to bring this to an end and bring peace to all of us. And so she dragged the brothers along, and they had 2 meetings. And then they met the father as a family group again, and they did as best they could. They all lived their separate lives, but they put to rest all their different issues. And she came back 2 years later and got her aura done, and there was no traces of any of that stuff in her aura because she'd done it. And she was the true yoga master. She was flying as high as a kite. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
So all those people who are running away from pain, yes, if it's domestic abuse, for God's sake, run as fast as you can, right? But don't think that you will heal from it unless you do some work on it.
Yeah.
And you have to understand who you are, because your soul is here to get a balance on the emotional, the material, and the spiritual. And you can run off and you can go and do all these courses. And I've had people come to me to do how to see and read the human aura. And I've talked to the individuals because I see it. You will get so far, and then you will fail. You'll stop traveling because all this is holding you back. And if you're looking at, I have people come to me and say, oh, I'm a Reiki master, and I take a look at them and I thought, wow, what an insult. I look at their auras and think, what an insult to Reiki. Reiki's a beautiful channel of energy. She's absolutely beautiful channel when it's pure. But you try and channel that through somebody who is thwarted spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, it doesn't come out right. Yes, it doesn't come out. Doesn't mean to say they can't heal, right? Because the astral layer of the aura will be connecting into past lives as healers and bring through the healing on the benefit of the person that they are healing. But they themselves won't evolve through that healing.
And what would you say to people? I'll just give you a 5-minute window. There's 5 minutes to go in there. But what would you say to people who try and seek a path of resolution, but then it's obstructed? The other person just can't engage in it. You know, the family members might kind of.
All right. Well, that immediately what would show in the auras is that that's not the path of resolution. It's not the path. Right. So the path of resolution is looking at where the relationship has come to. getting in touch with how it's affected everybody, and then looking at you and you putting it to rest and evolving beyond it, knowing that you can do no more.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what it is.
Well, that's helpful to know, I'm sure, because there might be people out there who've tried to resolve things but being pushed away, or that there is no apparent way to discuss.
There's hundreds of people, hundreds of children, hundreds of women, hundreds of men that are all in that situation all around the world.
Yeah, and I suppose it's challenging for them when you've got people who are avoidant or who've got a persistent pattern of not looking at certain things. So
that's right.
Yeah.
So the question is, you have to keep a diary, and you, every time something happens, you have to look at, do you react? That's emotionally. Fly off the handle, get angry, cry, get into a rage, get frustrated, or get stressed. Is that a reaction? Or do you respond? Do you sit back and look at the situation and say, I can move past this. This is not part of who I want to be. Those kinds of things. So you react and respond. Get the astrology done. Get the numerology done to work out who you are. Once you do that, get your astrocartography done to see whether or not you're in the right place. You could be in the wrong country. Many people have migrated to another country and their whole life has changed forever for the positive. So get your astrocartography done. Very important. The other thing that you can do is find a good hypnotherapist and who can guide you back to any of those points in your life and evolve you through it. This is all the healing journey. Do them one at a time. Know who you are, then go to hypnotherapy. My other thing too is go to a kinesiologist. Because, and then get muscle tested for your responses and your reactions to things, because that can be healed through kinesiology.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Fantastic summary for people on a sort of spiritual self-healing development. Thank you. We've got 2 minutes left. I'm going to ask you, so I'm curious, there's all this fantastic work that you're doing on your blog, so you're bringing out new stuff on your blog. Are you tempted to write another book?
I'm very busy at the moment. I'm running my organic property by myself because my husband's died. And I'm doing all of this. The answer, there's books flying around. There's several books flying around. I'm using the blog. So my website is an educational website. It's there for people who want to learn about any part of their life that's happening. It's got domestic abuse on it. It's got drug addictions. It's got all of that. So go to that website and just read that post, because it'll give you insight into how you deal and cope with stuff.
And your website's called yourhumanaura, is that right? .com?
yourhumanaura.com.
Brilliant. Well, I'd highly recommend that. I think that's a beautiful way to kind of wrap up the conversation, because there's less than a minute of the recording to go.
And the last section that I'm doing now is the journey of the soul. So I'm doing lots of things that I've talked about today in this interview and the previous interview, and they're all coming into educating people about the journey of their soul, which can be found in patterns in the human aura.
Brilliant. I'm just going to press stop. Thank you. Excellent. Oh, did that?